Hello and welcome to the Arsenal Ramble. Hope you've all had a very Merry Christmas and an even better Boxing Day. I know we have. In today's episode, we're going to be talking through the 3-1 home win against West Ham and how we managed it. So, as ever, I'm joined by my co-rambler Dave. Dave, did you have a good Christmas, mate?
Yeah, it's been really good, mate. Yeah, just been back to my family's, just spending a bit of time, bit of quality time with those guys. How about you? You had a good one?
Yeah, I've had a really good Christmas, mate. I've actually got quite a few different families to go to. So, with having separated parents, it's quite nice for Christmas because you get two lots of Christmas dinners, two lots of presents, and but I guess then
Yeah,
you've got more people to buy for, so it's a
that's
double-edged
true.
sword.
Yeah, more expensive.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. Yeah, I love Christmas, but I love watching football even more. So Boxing Day is the
Mm.
real Christmas day for me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great game. To be fair, very much long awaited. 6 weeks since our last fixture in the Premier League, so yeah, it really has been long awaited. What did you think to the team sheet coming out there? Because obviously we've had a lot of our players returning from the World Cup, so there's a few maybe um, doubts with who may play or who's match fit and what not. What did you think to the team sheet?
Yeah, well, I genuinely thought that it was going to be one of the bumps in the road for Arsenal after the World Cup because we had quite a few players that went there, and we were already worrying about our squad depth. So one of the biggest problems that we were potentially going to face was casualties from the World Cup. But we actually found out through the World Cup that not many of our players actually played, and most of them came back fighting fit already. Uh, Unfortunately, we lost Jesus, but I feel like we only really had one real injury from the World Cup, and that is Jesus. So yeah, I think
Mm.
we came back pretty much unscathed as far as we could be. What about you?
Yeah, I mean Saliba, although he got to the final, didn't really play a whole heap, did he? So you'd like to think he's raring to go again, um, which will be why he was obviously ushered straight back into the team. Saka's really the only player that I guess got fairly far into the tournament and was a consistent starter for the country. There's a few, Xhaka Aparte got knocked out in the earlier rounds, so I guess barring the Jesus injury, like you say, we've actually come out of the tournament in fairly good nick. Um, and as we expected, Eddie Nketiah started in Jesus' absence, so it's going to be a real test to see how he performed today, which we'll obviously get into a little bit later on. Yeah, so looking at that team sheet, I was pretty happy. Tierney at left back as well.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it as well. And Kieran Tierney is pretty much a like for like switch with Zinchenko now. They bring different things to the team, but I don't think either of them weaken the team when they're in it. So that
Yeah.
that's a safe option, and I'm happy with that. It's you do feel like there could be the drop off with Nketiah coming into the team, but as you said, and we've said in previous podcasts, he's not really had the opportunity to prove himself in this first team. So I think we
No.
just had to put a full faith into him and see how he performed today.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So should we get into the first half a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah,
So so really, we were dominating the game, dominating possession, really controlling the game, not really giving West Ham any opportunities to score. And then later on in the first half, we concede a penalty. What were your thoughts on the penalty? Do you think it was a penalty first and foremost?
um, I think even as a quite biased Arsenal fan, I would, yeah, I'd say I think it is a penalty. There's very minimal contact, so it does look very soft. But I think Saliba just gets beaten to the ball. He lets it bounce when it first comes over the top, and then he's he's trying to stretch to recover the ball because he should have initially cut it out. And then as soon as I think it's Bowen gets the ball and then plays it back through, he's then stretching to recover, and he just gets. Oh no, sorry, it was Antonio that got the ball, and then Bowen ran through.
Yeah,
He he just gets a little nick on him, and it puts him off balance. And fair play to Bowen, he does try to stay up, and even a little nick like that, it can knock you off balance and make you fall over. So I do think it is a foul. Maybe a bit of rustiness from Saliba after not really playing for the best part of 6 weeks. He had one cameo appearance against Tunisia, but that's about it. So, yeah, what do you think? Do you think it was a penalty?
yeah. I completely agree, actually. Yeah, normally we're used to seeing real composure from Saliba and a bit more of the last minute challenges from Gabriel, aren't we? But it was a bit roles reversed this time, and yeah, like you say, it's probably down to the fact that he hasn't played any competitive football in 6 weeks. Um, yeah, but Bowen did try to keep on his feet, didn't he? To be fair, and if that happened anywhere else on the pitch, no matter if the player fell down or whatnot, he still got caught and sort of tripped him up. So yeah, it probably was a penalty. It's soft, no doubt, but I think if the shoe was on the other foot and it was us in their box and that happened to one of our players, I think we'd be shouting for the penalty. So it was just a little moment, a lapse in concentration from Saliba, I think there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And something that was good to see as well in the first half is the whole back four were really helping each other out. There was a moment where Saliba, I think it was just before that penalty actually, where he was being put under quite a bit of pressure, and the ball came to Antonio and he was turning him inside and out, and then he managed to flick the ball onto his right foot, ready to shape up for a shot. And you just saw Ben White glide in, take the ball straight off his foot, and then calmly pass the ball straight back to Gabriel, who then
Mm.
recycled it, and we started to progress a counter attack. And it's 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 great to see that even though we've had this big break, we've had a 6 week break, and they've not played together. There's still this harmony in the back four where everyone knows each other's job. Everyone can help each other. They understand when they're struggling, when they need somebody else to come in and just give them that extra little bit of help, just to, if there's a challenge or if there's a bit of danger, they can sniff it out, and they're all helping each other out.
Mm. Yeah, and another thing to coincide with going 1-0 down as well is for the first time in a while when we go 1-0 down, I don't initially panic anymore. I like all the big teams go 1-0 down every now and again, sometimes 2-0 down, but you often think, well, they're going to get back into the game at some point. It's inevitable. And now I'm starting to think that with this team, they've got a lot of mental toughness. They don't let the scoreline affect them too much. They just play their game and get back into it. So that
Yeah,
was great to
and
see.
it's actually only the third time that we've been losing in the league this season. I think the other two times that we were in losing positions were, the first one was against Fulham, and the second one was obviously against Man United. I remember them saying in the commentary that Arsenal had only been in a losing position for a combined like 47 minutes for the whole season so far, which is pretty crazy considering it's Boxing Day. So it is unfamiliar territory at the minute when we go into a losing position, but
Mm.
it just shows you the character of the team, where it's something that's new. It's that it doesn't often happen. And the last time, to be fair to them, they actually did lose to Man United. That they
Yeah.
didn't put their heads down, and they plucked up the courage to go again in the second half. And moving on to that second half, because the penalty was right at the end of the well, it was, what was it, like half an hour into the first half?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
And then we had a penalty shout of our own at the end of that first half.
Yeah. Mm.
We were quite unlucky. Initially, I thought it was definitely a handball, and even on the commentary, everyone was saying, "Yeah, 100% Stonewall a handball." Referee gave it,
Mm.
and then you do see in the replay that it just hits him on the head, doesn't it? It doesn't actually touch
Yeah,
his hand. And that was when I was starting to think, I don't think today's going to be our day. I really did think that, especially just before halftime. That would have been like the
Yeah.
story we've seen so far this season, that we're getting that little bit of luck. We're getting those 50-50 decisions, but it didn't go for us. So we went into the break and I thought, I feel like we might get turned over here. And me being a bit negative, what did you think?
No, no. Well, no, it's quite natural to think like that, isn't it? Like you think like, oh yeah, this is going to be perfect. Just before half time, we're gonna get back on even grounds, and we're at home. You'd like to think we can win the second half. Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. But yeah, the replays showed it was just a way his hand was almost right next to his head in a weird way of heading the ball. I guess that's what made the referee and everybody else in the stadium think it was a handball. Um,
It sort
but
of
yeah,
reminds me of when Oxlade-Chamberlain was he was misdescribed as Kieran Gibbs. Do you remember against Chelsea, where he did the
yeah,
same thing with his hand in his head? However, he did actually hit his hand that time, and he got a red card. But yeah, the
yeah,
play he attempted the Oxlade-Chamberlain, but he actually used his face. So
yeah.
fair, fair play to him for
Fair
that.
play.
And
Yeah,
also
no, it
to
was.
say in that first half, we were completely dominant for I'd say 90% of the first half, and it was literally just the minutes following their penalty that we had to regroup and kind of steady the ship a little bit. But like Odegaard, he was unbelievable all game, but especially in the first half, he was making all the players tick. There was a chance actually where the ball got floated into Saka in the box, and he stood up really well at the back stick, and he rose over Cresswell, he's not small really, and so Saka had a good leap on him, cushioned the ball down to Odegaard, who had a pretty good attempt. It was only about 5 yards out from Fabianski, who got a big hand on it and pushed it wide. But we were creating lots of chances in the first half, but we just couldn't
Yeah.
get the ball in the net.
Yeah, it was pure dominance, really, and not just dominance from a possession point of view, dominance from a camping in their final third point of view. So yeah, it was encouraging. And just while we're talking about Saka, he looks like he's got even better since the World Cup, in my opinion. I know it's only one game, but he just looked even more threatening. um, so that's something to keep our eye on. I feel like he could be, going to that next level now, where he's going to be one of these wide forwards that is really goal contributing. He does look. Obviously, he's had a great World Cup as well. I think it could be very timely with the lack of Jesus. Um, I think we're going to rely on a lot of goals from Martinelli and Saka. So it's great to see those guys on the team sheet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that other guy that you mentioned there, Martinelli as well, he really looked like he was up for it, especially in the first half today, where I think there was a moment where he had a great touch on the left hand side, dribbles it all the way up the pitch, skins another person on the halfway line, and then he flicks it inside between two players and then wins a foul on the edge of their box. And that was about 15 minutes in, and you thought, wow, okay, he's got that new contract and he's really showing that he's worth it. And
Yeah.
it it must be nice for him after not really being involved too much in the World Cup squad. He had a few decent games, but Brazil relied on different players over him. For him to come
Yeah.
back into the Arsenal team, knowing that he's number one choice, he's just got a new contract, and his feet are on the ground straight away, and he wants to be back playing and playing well.
Mm. He looks hungry, doesn't he? I don't think we're going to have that issue where, like we've had in the past, where they sign a new contract and performances start to dip. I feel like it'll be the exact opposite with him now. He's now been compensated for his performances financially, and yeah, again, I think he's going to be another one that's going to kick on just like Saka, and we're really going to get goals from those two players.
Yeah. So if we're moving into the second half, early on in the second half, actually, I think we got caught with a lapse of concentration, and Antonio actually had a breakthrough on goal, which retrospectively he was actually offside, so it probably would have got ruled out. But at the time they didn't flag, and he made Ramsdale have to make a really smart save at his near post. So it's good to see that
Yeah.
Ramsdale was actually tested because he hasn't really played much recently either. He didn't get a
Mm.
sniff in the World Cup, so it's good to see that he was alert. And it was a bit of a warning sign that if we do go 2-0 down, it is a mountain to climb to get back into the game, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, he looked really sharp actually, Ramsdale. Um, Not just in his goal as well with his distribution. I think there was one piece of play in particular where I think he rolled it out just before the halfway line, and it resulted in a pretty good chance for Nketiah. Well defended in the end by West Ham, but yeah, he really did look sharp. Um, it's good to see.
Yeah, yeah. He really did look good. And then not long after he made that save, that man Odegaard again received the ball in their final third, and he really was making the play tick all game. He was trying to make passes, he was jinxing and turning on the ball and taking players on, and he really led like a captain today. But he had probably his I'd say his worst bit of play, but it actually ended up being the moment that made the broke the deadlock, sorry.
Mm,
And he had a scuffed shot, and somehow it managed to make its way into Saka's path, who was actually played onside by their right back. Initially, Saka looked a yard or two offside, but then seeing the replay, he was way onside. Who just calmly gathers the ball, puts it. It was a great finish. It's an underrated finish, to be honest, to be able to just guide it with enough power, just have the composure to just guide it into the bottom left hand corner.
mm.
And yeah, got the ball, ran back to the halfway line and said, let's go again, lads.
Yeah, it was an ice cool finish, wasn't it? I wonder if he spotted the defender off his line and used that space to his advantage. Do you think he was scanning for that, or do you think it was just more luck?
Probably a bit of both, really. Like,
Mm.
because he wasn't really looking at the time. He was watching Odegaard and then he was making the run. But I think he knows once he's in that position and he finishes, I think he does know that he is onside because he's looked around and seen that the player was playing him onside. And because
Yeah,
the thing is, usually you'd see a player either look to the linesman to see a flag or they'd kind of half celebrate thinking that they're going to get ruled offside. But every single player on the team knew that he'd scored and it wasn't going to get ruled out. He grabbed the ball,
yeah,
ran back to the halfway line. So, yeah. I think
yeah.
he knew he'd scored, and it it did look like it was a scuff shot from Odegaard, but then a part of me thinks, did he actually mean to like pass that? Because you never know
I'm
with him.
not so sure.
He is that good though, isn't he? He's definitely got that in his
Yeah,
locker.
yeah. I mean, he got man of the match, didn't he? And it was a man of the match performance. He was dictating play. Everything went through him. Who knows? I didn't see any post-match interviews with him. It'd be interesting to see what he says about that. But I'm pretty sure that was a bit of a scuffed shot. But it was a good touch by Saka nonetheless. He got it under control, um, and that's what gave him the space to be able to just slot it into the corner like with no with ease really.
It's the touch that made the goal as well because it's so hard to gather the ball when it's fired at you like that to then be able to just get it just out of your feet so that you can shape up for a shot because 9 times out of 10 it will either go through your legs or you'll have a heavy touch and the keeper can get onto it, but it was absolutely perfect and it gave him 2 or 3 seconds to actually just steady himself and he can pick his spot. And yeah, it's the touch
Yeah,
that made the goal really. And
yeah,
to be honest, Saka had a few of those today where the ball would come to him and his touch was absolutely superb. I remember Odegaard passing the ball to him on the right wing and he just scoops the ball with his left foot right into his stride. He doesn't even have to break stride at all. So he's already
no,
sprinting at the left back at Cresswell, scoops the ball round and he beats them round. It's his talent is unprecedented, and I do think that we need to get his contract sorted ASAP because every single time he plays, he's playing better.
Yeah, just you talking about him then and how good he is made me think that actually. I was thinking, yeah, we really need to get this guy signed down, don't we? Got Martinelli sorted now. Well, not officially, but heavily reported. So hopefully Saka could be the next one. But yeah, his game was so strong, and he also was playing with a lot of strength as well. I noticed in the second goal, he almost pinned Declan Rice, which is almost twice the size of Saka. Sort of pinned him, spun him. The ball eventually goes out wide left to Martinelli, who's just managed to hold his line and catches Fabianski out at his near post. What did you think to that piece of play and the goal?
Yeah, I thought that was absolutely superb from Saka.
Yeah.
Spinning Rice. I think that's becoming Saka's signature move now, isn't it? Wherever he's on the pitch, he likes to back into a player, or he'll have the player on the half turn and he'll spin away from him, and then he almost teases the next player in with the ball so that they will come and commit to the challenge, and then he'll just nick it away just before they get it. It's like those that his little way of always being able to manage to spin a player and get past them, and then from there on it was beautiful play. It went to Martinelli, and I do feel like we were quite fortunate because Fabianski should have done better there, really. However,
Yeah.
I think he's expecting Martinelli to cross that, and yeah, it was a good finish. Really, it's a similar finish to one that we actually conceded last season. I think it was Diogo Jota in the cup, where
Yeah.
if you hit it hard enough, then you're going to catch the keeper off guard. Sometimes if they're not completely careful, so sometimes you got to roll the dice and hopefully it goes in.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely worth trying them every now and again, isn't it? It was a hit with a lot of power. So I'm not. A lot of keepers would save that, but a lot wouldn't too. So I do think it was well taken by Martinelli. But go back to the Saka thing as well. Like he, if he now has got this pinning players and spinning them bow to his Arsenal, he's now got that. But if the defender sits off him, he's also got the ability to take him on. So it's really now leaving defenders puzzled with how to actually mark Saka because if you go tight, he's going to spin you. If you drop off him, he's going to take you on. So he's really
Yeah,
causing defenders problems.
and another thing to add to that as well, it's not just what he does on the ball; it's what he does off the ball as well. So there'll be so many times where you'll see Saka, he'll receive the ball on the right, and then he'll try, well, he always tries to beat the man, but if he knows that he can't, he'll then just pass it inside to Odegaard, and then he'll make a run straight away. And then his movement, constant movement, flowing movement, him and Odegaard, the dovetailing on that right wing, it causes no end of problems for defenders because they can't double up on Saka either because there's so many other options for him to pass it to. And then you've got the threat of Odegaard, you've got Nketiah's even making runs in now, Martinelli on the left hand side, and we can shift it from right to left so quickly. Even Xhaka's making runs now as well, and there was a couple of times in that game where he was quite unlucky to not get on the end of a decent ball from
Mm.
Odegaard. So we have threat all over the pitch, and it's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, yeah, you can tell that teams are now worried because there's almost every player can score. Partey was having shot good efforts on goal. Xhaka had a few. Annoyingly, they were on his right foot, which tend to be nowhere near as powerful as his left. Um, yeah, there's just goals all over this team, even without Jesus, which is you know
Yeah,
pretty lucky for us.
and also going back to Odegaard, with his captain performance today, there was so many times where off the ball he was howling and harrying players, and he would make tackles in the final third, which led to chances. And it West Ham just didn't know what to do. They couldn't get out of the box. They couldn't lump it long because Saliba and Gabriel would just gobble it up. And then when they tried to play out, you had the likes of Odegaard, who I think he made two or three tackles in their final third, and then they started to turn over possession, and we actually had a chance, a shot. So just
Yeah.
shows you how effective his pressing really is.
Yeah, he's one of those press resistant players, isn't he? Like, um, they're so valuable to teams like us that rely on the press to stop their well counter attacks basically, and that's how a lot of teams are going to try and to score against us, and it's going to be with counter attacks. But not only can we stop that, we can use it to our advantage to go attack them when they're at the most vulnerable. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, I think we did really well with that in this game.
Yeah. And so our next big match event, I wrote a few notes down for the game, and for this one, I didn't need any notes because I just put Nketiah goal, just wow, because that's all I could say for it really. Because it came from the ball went to Ben White, who was just outside the final third, and he flicks the ball over their player and then passes it into Odegaard for sort of like a give and go, and then Ben White makes the run, drags another player wide, whilst Odegaard first time ball back to Nketiah, who just exquisitely rolls his player. It was like poetry in
Mm.
football. Rolls his player and then doesn't even look up, knows where the goal is, and finishes it superbly into the bottom left. And you just saw like the weight being lifted off his shoulders as he was running to celebrate as well. Like all the pressure that was on him before the game. Can he fill Jesus' shoes? And to ice the cake of this game with a goal from him, it was just
Yeah,
like the perfect storm, the perfect time.
the perfect outcome as well. All three of our forward players scoring. Um, Confidence is what they need right now, having had such a long break. They all want to hit the ground running, and start where they left basically,
Yeah,
and more so for Nketiah with the Jesus boot filling role that he's got for the next 2 or 3 months. So I was absolutely chuffed he got on the scoreline. Yeah, and like you said, what a goal that was. Um, I've watched it back actually a couple of times, and if you watch Nketiah, he's using his arms to feel where the defender is, and he almost uses them to give a little bit of a dummy. So he sort of makes the defender go one way, he spins him and just slots it into the corner. It's really, really clever. It's really, really clever forward play. And it just gave him that little yard of space to get the shot away. Where 9 times out of 10, most forwards would get that blocked.
yeah, and also like 9 times out of 10, forwards would receive the ball to feet there and then try and pop it off, or they would go the way that they were going and then try and use their left foot. But it was purely instinctive play from Nketiah. He knows where the space is. He just rolls him. It was almost like Thierry Henry-esque because I saw him talking about it after the game and he said, "Yeah, that's something that I would have done back in the day."
Oh yeah,
it was amazing.
it was really really clever. And like I say, I'm so glad that he's got on the score sheet because he's going to need this confidence going into these games in January.
Do you think he's good enough?
Yeah, yeah. I don't understand the doubt really. With Nketiah, last season he proved to Arsenal that he can be relied upon. Um, he was so much better than Lacazette when we swapped those two out, or swapped him out for Lacazette, I should say. Um, got his contracts off the back of those good performances, and yeah, Jesus has taken that number one spot, but there's no arguing that he is our number one striker. But it doesn't mean there's not going to be games that Eddie will play. All top teams need good forwards. And he is one of our good forwards. Yeah, I think he's going to do really, really well in Jesus' absence.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, he's a young player. He's got a lot to prove, and he presses really effectively. He's quick. He can finish well, and he has so many decent players around him that are going to feed him these opportunities. So I've got high hopes for Nketiah. And then hopefully Jesus has to try and win his spot back in the team.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that Nketiah is a better finisher than Jesus. I mean, there's a pretty strong argument for that. Jesus didn't score in 10 consecutive games, maybe even more actually. for Arsenal. Obviously, we all know how he affects the game in other ways and how invaluable that is.
Mm.
But Nketiah, in my opinion, is more clinical in front of goal. Yeah, he'll miss opportunities. All players do. Um, but the amount of chances that this Arsenal team creates, I think he's going to be scoring more often than you think.
Yeah, I do think that Nketiah is going to come out of the season with a quite a healthy goal return now that he's going to be
I do.
starting uh, every match week. And yeah, I'm really pleased for him, and it was the perfect game for him today. And also, it was good to see that we had Zinchenko get subbed back on in the latter stages of the game. That he got some minutes as well.
Yeah, we was looking at the bench, weren't we, before the game, and we were sort of thinking it's not looking too help. It's not looking too strong. There's no obvious player to come on if we're sort of chasing the game. Um, and that is one little fear I had at half time when we was 1-0 behind. Who's going to come on and make an impact? Vieira probably would be the most likely you'd think, but Zinchenko another. But more of a defensive option. But yeah, he's had a few niggles, hasn't he, injury wise? So it's good to see him back, match fit. And it'll be interesting to see now who's going to be that consistent left back. Is Zinchenko going to start now that he's match fit, or is Tierney going to keep his place? That's going to be an interesting one to see.
Mm. I personally don't think Arteta sees it like that. I don't think he sees either of them as a first choice.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that Arteta thinks that he's got two players that are good for different games and different game states. So if he wants to spread the play, he can give it to Tierney. He can run down the left. And to be fair to Tierney, he actually did play quite well when he went inverted today. He moved the ball well, and he came. He was really alert to the ball spilling to receive a second ball today. The amount of times that the possession was turned over by West Ham, and then he was straight onto it, got the ball, recycled it to Xhaka, and then made a run straight away. So
Yeah.
sometimes Arteta might want that, and then other times you saw when Zinchenko came on, he was really pulling the strings from that half space. So we've got two top quality players, and they bring different things to the table. So it's great to have that in our arsenal, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, Tierney does seem to be evolving his game more in line with what Arteta wants. So you can clearly see that that's something that's being taught on the training ground. And I think he's getting better at it. He is certainly improving that inverted role. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I completely agree. We've just got a really, really strong squad at the minute,
Mm,
and we've got strong options in positions, or
yeah.
the same position, I should say, which then leaves him to be able to choose who he wants, that who's more suited to that particular team we're against. Yeah, so obviously Tierney was the better option in this game.
Yeah, well, to wax lyrical a little bit more about our man of the match, Martin Odegaard. Did you see where he did that little Cruyff turn in? He had two players around him,
Yeah.
and he did a Cruyff turn nutmeg towards the end of the game. Won the ball, and I think he won a foul afterwards. And that just shows that he's really playing. He's got his mojo back, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many players in this game that just look like they've got even better in this 6 week break. We might actually have come out of it, uh, in a better position. Because players like Odegaard haven't been at the World Cup, so they've just had 6 weeks of solid training on whatever they need to train on, and recovery time as well. It looks as if we've had Ben White. They all just look like so full of energy and full of a new lease of life, and yeah, I think we've actually really benefited from this.
Yeah, and Ben White played really well as well. To be honest, he was making some great supporting runs down the right for Saka,
Oh
and
yeah,
he's another player that's got a point to prove because he had a bit of negative press during the World Cup after uh, supposedly falling out with the management and staff, and then coming back to the UK. So him, Saliba, he has a point to prove. Gabriel, because he didn't actually get picked. Tierney, he
Yeah.
didn't. Scotland didn't qualify. Xhaka and Partey, their teams didn't go that far, and they want to keep their career rolling. And then, as you say, the Odegaards, Norway didn't get to the World Cup. So all of our players, they've got such a point to prove, and because we're performing so well in this league, it's amazing to see the come back after the break and then performing the way that they are.
Yeah, and it's also such a vital 3 points as well to get to come back after that break and get that 3 points straight away. There's no sort of press going like, oh, Arsenal, they're slipping up already. It's been 6 weeks solid of Arsenal at the top of the league, and we're gonna make it longer now. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
it's
the did you see that the other North London club, I don't
yeah,
want to say their name, actually dropped points today. So that I think that
yeah,
puts us, are we 9 or 10 points clear of them?
something like that. Yeah, I mean, I saw the scoreline at 2-0, and I was thinking that that this is a real opportunity. I knew they was going to get back into it when I checked the score line at full time. I was like, well, at least there's points dropped. It's better than a 3-2 win to them. But yeah, another opportunity to spread that gap. Um, and you'd like to think that they're probably one of the teams that are going to be fighting for the top four position at the end of the season. So I mean, I know we're not trying to think that I'm not trying to think pessimistically about top four, but ultimately that is our aim. Hopefully it's not come May, but and we're fighting for the title. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, what
And
was you going to say? Sorry.
something that did actually make me laugh because I watched the highlights from that Spurs game is they're actually quite hard done by in the game where they didn't actually get a refereeing decision. I think it was Harry Kane probably should have been given a penalty because it was a foul on him,
Oh,
and
really?
he didn't get given the penalty. Yeah, the player had two arms around him and dragged him to the ground, and they didn't get a penalty. And I thought that's probably the first time I've ever seen that happen to Harry Kane and Spurs. So it was a Christmas miracle, so to speak. You see him not get a penalty, and he got they got two goals back, and I think they actually hit the bar in the last minute as well. So it was
Hmm.
lovely to see that Brentford could hold on to make them drop some points and ultimately try and solidify our position in the top four even greater.
Yeah, yeah. It's about time that they got some decisions that went like that because they get a lot of the England captain bias, I think, with ref decisions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So following the game, we actually had a visitor to the Emirates Stadium today, a certain Mr. Arsene Wenger. Were you happy to see him there?
Yeah, I know. Well, like everybody else, I had no idea. And then during the during the game, they sort of got him on the screens, and I was thinking, what is this? Is this real? Like, is this real? Like, it's amazing. I've been waiting for this day for 5 years. It's something that I've always wondered. Why is he not there? I know he's got his reasons, and he wanted to give the managers time to settle in with no sort of with no pressure. Not it must be quite a pressure. It must be quite stressful to know that such a legend is in the stands watching them. Um, but yeah, it's great, and I'm hoping that he can come more often. To be honest, apparently Arteta didn't tell the players that he was going to be there. It was all sort of done behind the scenes to take that pressure away from the players. But yeah, it's great. What about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if there's a game that he's going to come and watch, then that was a really good one for him to come and watch.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually had a piece here that was written by my brother on the Arsene Wenger returning. So I'll read it out because I thought it was pretty good. So he said, Wenger returning to watch a match after 4 years avoiding it. How proud he must feel to finally see a young attacking team looking successful in the stadium that he helped build. The fact that he spent 12 years at the Emirates with relative success, well, as in consistent Champions League football, which in hindsight seems like a mammoth of an achievement when you consider he and the club only had limited funds at the time, but they could never quite make that extra step to be able to be outright contenders for the title. Seeing the transformation of the atmosphere in the ground must have seemed like a night and day transformation to him, as we've witnessed over the as we've witnessed all the progression of it over the years. The formation of the Arsenal fan ultras group, the creating chants using drums every day, every game, emphasizing the importance and the I'm butchering this, emphasizing the importance of supporting the team and how the players feed from that and reflect it in their performances. How the Emirates library has been whipped into a cauldron driven by success and enthusiasm in Arteta's team. And then circling it back to Arsene Wenger, in his autobiography, he actually says he couldn't actually ever see himself returning to the Emirates because of how it all ended, how painful it was when he left under a cloud of Wenger out, and how the crowd reacted to him at the games. Similarly to Granit Xhaka, there was huge negatives at the time, and he took some time out of the limelight and then came back to an adoring crowd. It just shows you that there's such huge respect for him at the club, and he gave everything to the club for many, many years. And to go full circle, he finally returned, and the lads solidify their, well, at least 5 point gap at the top of the table. So it's pretty much a fairy tale ending.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite poetic, really, isn't it? As well, to think that Arsene Wenger signed Arteta for Arsenal, um, mentored him towards the latter stages of his time at Arsenal. He then went off, got his coaching badges, learned from other great managers, come back. He's now the manager that has got Arsenal to the position that we're in now, and it's resulted in him coming back and being able to be proud of where Arsenal is again, because it's been a bleak decade, longer than a decade, hasn't it? But yeah, that was really well said. Okay, there's been a few rumours circulating now around potential transfers. A lot more reputable journalists are reporting that we've made a significant offer for Mudryk of Shakhtar Donetsk. I think the reported fees are around 40 million euros plus 20 million euros in add-ons. What are your thoughts around this?
Well, it's certainly a lot different to the 100 million that was reported before when their chairman came out saying that that was his valuation. I think that's more of an appropriate amount for Mudrick, and I would be happy with that, to be honest. I do think we need some reinforcements up top, and yeah, after watching a few YouTube clips of him, I think you. The thing is, I don't watch the Turkish league that often, so I'm not too clued up on how he performs. So all you can get really is highlight reels. And from what I've seen, he does look like a really direct player, and he's got a great shot on him. He's got a good touch. He's very quick. He's absolutely rapid. So he would fit really well into our team. And yeah, I'd be happy to see him be brought to the club. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it coincides with what we were saying earlier about how our weak bench and how we really didn't have much options coming off it. Should we have needed someone a bit more attacking? So someone like Mudryk to bring on, really could change outcomes in games. So yeah, someone like that it really will benefit us. There were reports that that fee was more of an opening offer that we expect to be rejected. That's what worries me a little bit because we're already into like the 60 million zone, even with it being our first offer. And if that's going to be rejected, how far is this going up? All that worries me is I don't want another Pepe situation on our hands where we invest heavily into one player that affects future transfer plans and it doesn't work out. 'Cause it really can become a bit of a hindrance later on. I guess another caveat to that is his wages. Is he going to be on lower wages? So if that were to happen, would we be able to shift him I know I'm thinking quite pessimistically here, but you have to think about these options because with the Pepe situation, he was on such a high wage that no one would touch him. Um, so you'd like to think, coming from Ukraine, from a league that's not very well renowned, that his wages aren't going to be, anywhere near what Pepe's were. Um, so that could be the one caveat to say it'd be a more feasible risk.
Yeah, sometimes there's the pressure on a team to play a player as well if they have that heavy price tag on their head, and you don't you don't want a player to expect that they're going to play. You want them to earn their place in the team. So yeah, there could be a part of that in there, but I do think that however much the fee is, it would be great just to bring somebody else in because we do need the firepower. Definitely need the firepower. It's nice as well to see that Cody Gakpo's now all the rumours that we had with Cody Gakpo that's now off the cards because I think Liverpool have just signed a pre-transfer agreement, haven't they?
Hmm.
Before the windows opened, which is quite funny, really,
Yeah,
because Man United fans were gloating about how close they were to signing him, and then he's gone to Liverpool. So
yeah,
it's good that we don't have to think who we're going to get. I think we're fully focused on Mudrick.
yeah. But again, that's another team that's already got several forward players, but they're adding yet another one because they know these games come thick and fast. You've got to rotate. You need quality up top. That's where your goals are coming from. So it just goes to prove that we certainly are light in comparison to our rivals. Um, so yeah, adding a forward player is certainly got to be top priority. What about the loan rumor links to João Felix? I think it's like a 6 month loan rumor where where we would pay his full wages and maybe pay a fee on top of that. For his services for 6 months. What would your thoughts be on that? Would you be keen or?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the quoted fee was about 8 million euros to have him for 6 months. Um,
Mm.
I think if he comes into the team and he would be if he helps us achieve our goals, if he helps us achieve maybe a title or an FA Cup win along with the top four finish, then it's absolutely worth it. However, I do feel like what's the point of renewing Nketiah's contract, giving him a big money contract, and saying to him when Jesus isn't in the team, you're going to get your opportunity to then bring in a lone player for 6 months and then chuck him to the side, especially after he's getting his first opportunity back in the team and he's scoring and he's playing well. I just think it would be such a kick in the teeth for Nketiah, but I can see both sides. I can see why we would need another striker because, for example, Nketiah could get an injury and then we'd be left with no striker. But I I feel like a striker. I don't think we should get a striker. I don't think we should get João Felix. I wouldn't be against it if we got him in, but I think that the club should stick with Nketiah. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, although in principle it sounds great, the knock-on effects of of the of Nketiah, basically, of how he would feel to be in that situation. Being third choice. I know obviously Jesus is injured, so he'd be technically second choice, but Jesus isn't injured forever. He's going to come back at some point in this within this season. Um, so yeah, I just think I just don't think it's really feasible to integrate him into the team for 6 months. Plus, at the end of it, they're going to be demanding huge, huge money for him, and I don't really like loaning players just for the sake of it. I like to loan the player like Odegaard, see how well they play for us, and then sign them permanently. The Ceballos thing, was something where we loaned him for 2 years as sort of a stopgap position, and he just never really felt like an Arsenal player. Just never really fit in, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't really like. I just don't like doing those sort of moves.
No, similar to like a Dennis Suarez as well. You never really feel like they're your player, so why are they going to give everything for the badge? If it's a
Mm.
try before you buy kind of situation, then you'd understand, like Odegaard, for example. But
Yeah,
I don't think it would be a try before you buy because, as you said, then we would have three strikers, and after giving Nketiah that lengthy contract, you're not going to have three strikers all on big contracts where only one of them can play each game, apart
exactly.
from getting
Yeah.
subbed on or whatever. So I don't think it's going to happen. I do think it's just rumours, but yeah, we'll have to see because someone like João Felix, he can also play in different roles, can't he? I guess he's multi-skilled. He can play more of a deeper role, or he could play out on the wings and cover if maybe Odegaard or Saka or Martinelli's out. So it it could be another one of those Arteta masterclasses where he just gets really technically gifted players that can play in any position. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I do. I know what you're saying. If Nketiah does get injured as well, then who have we got? But there are other options, aren't there? Like Martinelli could he play up top? It wouldn't be for a mega large amount of time, so I don't think it would impact us heavily. But let's just touch wood that that doesn't even happen in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Just want to leave you guys with the side note that we're still top of the league and we will be for at least two more games. We're 5 points, well, we're 8 points clear of Man City at the minute, depending on how they play versus Leeds. So we'll all be staying tuned and hoping that Leeds can do a number on them. And yeah, I hope you guys have a happy new year and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.